Today on Strange and Suspicious. What do presidents really know about UFOs? My feeling is they know something about life beyond us.
If they admit, like, yeah, I think there's aliens, are they just all afraid to look crazy?
Or get more questions?
This is an Australian journalist who has a theory about why Donald Trump is scared to talk about UFOs.
He's scared they're going to kill him if he reveals what he knows.
Do you believe in reincarnation? These kids say it happened to them.
She turns to a page and they say, that's me.
The details the kids got right about the person they used to be is pretty uncanny.
A lot of these children are citing their death was something violent like a homicide.
And they're scared to death of the manner of death that the predecessor experienced. Was 19-year-old Noah Presgrove murdered? He went to a party and ended up dead.
I do think that the friends were actually involved.
Him and his best friend got into an argument, supposedly squashed the beef, but it feels like maybe the best friend's father.
The best friend's father is sus.
Very sus.
This cannot be human. It's way too big. Is there a giant species living in the country of Laos?
I definitely think that that's something up there, but I'm on the fence about whether or not this is a perspective issue.
If you got a perspective issue here, look at this footprint.
It's got 5 toes. It's shaped like a foot. It absolutely can be a giant's foot.
Something is up with presidents and UFOs. George W. Bush was so sketchy when he was asked about that. Bill Clinton said that there may well be aliens out there. Barack Obama said he couldn't explain some of the things that he's seen when it comes to unidentified flying objects. This is an Australian journalist who has a real interesting theory about why Donald Trump is scared to talk about UFOs.
He's scared they're going to kill him if he reveals what he knows. That's what I've been told. You have a situation where your potential president is terrified of speaking about the UAP issue because he's scared they're going to knock him.
I want to know what's going on. Would you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on there?
So many people ask me that question. I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
So is that Australian journalist right? Because he is just waffling on this.
I think it holds water because we know that this dude, Trump, never met a secret that he didn't want to spill.
We also know that when he doesn't know anything, he always says interesting over and over again.
Also true.
And more importantly about that, though, the source, right? So Ross and I are good mates.
Ross is the guy that we just saw, the Australian journalist.
Ross Coulthart. So Ross and I talk all the time, and when he says, I have people and sources that tell me this and that, I trust Ross. And presidents all the way back to Eisenhower have been allegedly briefed on this sort of thing. And you can tell it when they're in these interviews that they're being, stopped at some point. I can't go any further.
If we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day.
You're right. Every president since Eisenhower has been briefed on something. It may be that we don't know very much, and that might be the essence of the briefing, but that definitely within the community, national security community, there is a concern.
Why can't they take a stand? I mean, if they have some document that shows definitively there's no such thing. It's easy to say there's no such thing. They all waffle on this. Why?
Bush is very tongue-in-cheek. I think Bush is having fun with it.
Did you go through the secret files, the UFO documents? Because if I was president, that'd be the first thing I did.
You know, it's funny. My daughters asked the very same question.
They did?
Yeah.
Would you be allowed to tell your daughters what was in those files?
No.
You would not?
No.
Now that you're out of office, you can do anything you want, right?
True, yeah. But I'm not telling you.
You're not telling me.
I think that he thought it's a moment of being kind of charming and kind of tongue-in-cheek.
All of them are this way. And it's like everybody kind of wants to know this.
This is too binary. You're making it sound like they do know or they don't know, but the worst scenario is that they don't know.
Why is that the worst scenario? I cannot imagine a country that would want to inform possibly the most public figure of the government and tell them something that they could be susceptible. These are people who are going on late night shows at times.
They say, okay, I want to see the file. No, I'm the president. I want to see the file. file.
I'm not denying there could be a separate agency that might have intelligence about alien life. Hypothetically, let's say that's true. The person that you probably don't want to be informed about that and have a slip, a human error of releasing that on hot mic, would be the face of the country.
So some bureaucrat knows, but the president doesn't?
I would say so.
It's a national security clearance issue. Each one of these presidents is sworn in, at a level of TS or above. They're not able to say much about it. And if they did, they'd be compromised.
If they admit, like, oh yeah, I've seen it, yeah, I think there's aliens, are they just all afraid to look crazy?
Or get more questions.
It's media training. It's excellent media training.
Yeah, they can't discuss any classified files. It could be about anything and they can't talk about it.
They're all angling away, but it's not aliens, it's defense secrets and that kind of thing.
But also, the world isn't just America. Has any other governments or presidents said anything in this? We only give attention, so.
Going back to the presidents being coy, could it just be they don't want to cause mass hysteria? Because if they do say, yes, we have evidence, what happens then?
Okay, I'll buy what you're saying. It's easy to stop the hysteria if they say, I've looked at it, everybody's looked at it, and there's no such thing. But if there is such a thing, then there is a reason to not cause mass hysteria. Absolutely. So my feeling is they know something about life beyond us. If it wasn't so, they would just say it.
Totally agree.
I think so. With great knowledge comes a lot of responsibility, and I think the past presidents have done a great job with their media training. Trump doesn't care about media training, and so I think that his nervousness comes from the fact that he does know a lot. If there's extraterrestrial life that we do not know how to combat, everybody is going to freak out. So I think it comes with a sense of security to protect the American citizens.
Right, so what you're saying is they know something exists beyond us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Coming up, there is something about this children with past lives theory. Kids from 2 to 6 have come up with these really shocking stories about who they were in past lives.
The details the kids got right about the person they used to be is pretty uncanny.
Go all Shirley MacLaine on you guys, but there is something about this children with past lives theory that kids from 2 to 6 have come up with these really shocking stories about who they were in past lives. And it sounds crazy, and this is all reincarnation, but there are things that you just can't explain, where these kids know things they shouldn't know about somebody else. 2 examples.
He said, Mom, I have something I need to tell you. I think I used to be somebody else. And he started just telling me these stories about how he had lived in Hollywood. His stories were so detailed. It just wasn't like a child that could have made it up.
She turns to a page and they say, that's me. That's who I was. That's me. Yeah.
Gus was 4 when Ron was given an old family album. To his parents' astonishment, Gus was able to point out his grandfather in an old school photograph. He also correctly identified this as the first car that his grandfather ever owned.
He showed me a picture, and then I said, that was my first car. And then my dad was like, that's weird, because the car was Grandpa's first car. So it was all scary.
The through line of it that's disturbing is that a lot of these children who talk about these stories are citing their death was something violent like a homicide.
And they're scared to death of the manner of death that the predecessor experienced.
I mean, how do we explain a child or multiple children who actually know to concoct a story that they were murdered?
We don't know what they're exposed to in the household to trigger that, and I'm gonna say it's fantasy and suggestibility.
I 100% disagree with you. I think conversations like that are the reason why kids don't say anything.
Right, because you make them feel crazy.
Because you make them feel crazy when actually, I just feel like you should embrace what the child is saying because there could be truth in it.
On the other side of this, though, There was a very famous case in LA, the McMartin preschool molestation case, where there were scores of kids who were pointing the finger at two people and saying they were the ones who molested us. And it turned out the whole thing was a crock and that it was suggestive and they were found not guilty.
Kids are incredibly suggestible, and there have been multiple studies after the McMartin case because it was such a problematic case. The thing is, I'm willing to say, all right, let's not dismiss it, but the problem I have from a scientific standpoint is that because we do not know what these kids were exposed to prior to providing this narrative, it muddies everything.
But they're 2 to 6, so they're not these kids that are so conscious of everything that they're going to parrot. I mean, they're little kids.
The stuff my daughter would say at 2 blew me away. It made me think of Bill Cosby in a good way.
I don't know how that.
But what I mean is that the stuff that she would start talking about was unbelievable. So, like, even if I go in with an open mind, the problem I have is because it's not a controlled group, right? Like, if you look at it scientifically, we do not know what these children were exposed to.
We know what people say they were exposed to.
Precisely.
But we don't know what they were exposed
to. And that's the problem.
The details the kids got right about the person they used to be is pretty uncanny.
This kid points out his grandfather when he was like 8 years old, the grandfather, out of a big crowd. I mean,
I absolutely think that it can be true. And I am at the age where all of my friends have very young children, and they will tell me, I don't understand where she could have learned this, where she could have gotten it. I just feel like you should embrace what the child is saying because there could be truth in it. I think that naturally kids, yes, they're sponges, but they know way more than we're giving kids the benefit of.
If these kids have psychic abilities to be able to see through the eyes of someone who's already passed, I think that's, if you're going to venture into that realm, that's more plausible to me, that they haven't actually lived that life, but they're seeing through the eyes of these people and thinking that it's them, because I have met some very gifted kids.
I want to tell you a story because I see this so vividly, and I'm an old guy. I was 6 years old, and we lived in an apartment in Los Angeles, and I was walking in the street, and I saw a plane come down and crash on the tree right next to me. And it didn't really happen, but it was so vivid in my mind. And to this day, I can't explain how real that was. And I remember thinking, there's some connection here. And it has stayed with me to this day. It is so real to me, but I didn't have that kind of crazy imagination. I mean, it was such a one-off. I think it was somebody in a past life. I honestly, and I know that sounds crazy, but it's so vivid. Coming up. So there is this weird crime case involving a kid named Noah Presgrove. He was 19 years old. He went to a party and ended up dead.
It was mind-boggling to look at the autopsy and the conclusions that they came up with and go, you guys are missing something big time here.
What ginormous stars have we seen on the TMZ Celebrity Tour? Well, how about Ben Affleck, Rihanna, Kevin Hart, Mariah Carey, Mark Wahlberg, The Rock, Lizzo, and Jamie Foxx. Buses depart daily from the Hard Rock Cafe in Hollywood. Head to TMZTour.com or scan this QR code and book your tickets now.
So there is this weird crime case involving a kid named Noah Presgrove. He was 19 years old. He lived in Oklahoma. He went to a party and ended up dead, but not just dead. He ended up naked, his head bashed in a fetal position, teeth out, and they said it's undetermined. And there is just something really, really troubling about this. This does not feel undetermined. It feels like murder.
When you have a death there's 4 possibilities. It could be natural, it could be an accident, it could be suicide, it could be homicide. It was mind-boggling to look at the autopsy and the conclusions that they came up with. They actually had natural as one of the options of what could have happened. I'm like, how is any part of that natural?
Okay, the coroner says, all right, it's blunt trauma that killed him. Was it fists? Was it baseball bats? Was it something else? Like, for example, it was noted that his buttocks had black marks. Well, find out, what are those black marks? Is it marker? Is it paint?
Asphalt?
Is it asphalt? Yeah. Is it rubber? I mean, what is it?
There are a lot of parts of this case that just don't make sense. At the party, there's Snapchats that everybody saw when he was under the influence. They were like drawing on him with Sharpie. Now, they do say that they gave him a shower, but everybody knows that Sharpie needs to be scrubbed off of your skin. When they found his body, there were no marks on him at all.
So are you saying he was washed extensively, much more than they're alluding to?
Exactly, yeah.
I do think that the friends were actually involved, because when I'm looking at all the details, it feels messy and it feels like teenagers were involved.
Here's some video of him at the party, so he does look intoxicated, I will say.
Come on. Yes, come on, Shady.
He's wasted.
Okay, here's the thing. The slap fights are very, very teenagery. So that doesn't really tell me ill intent. Him and his best friend got into an argument, supposedly squashed the beef, but the connection with the clothes, it feels like maybe the best friend, maybe the best friend's father.
The best friend's father is sus. So when he was found in a fetal position, totally naked except for a pair of shoes, the shorts he was wearing at the time he went missing from the party were neatly folded next to his body. Him having a piece of clothing folded neatly next to his body just sort of tells me that maybe somebody who knew him had a little bit of remorse.
Or was involved in it. Because you could have an accident in which people are trying to distance themselves because they don't want to be blamed. You know, because there was this whole Fight Club thing to this where, you know, he was saying, hit me, and
what if later in the evening it became Fight Club?
There was some interesting stuff in the autopsy as well about old healing wounds that he had. It was weird, like a number of different wounds that weren't from that day that were healing, which may go to your Fight Club theory.
And that would explain why he has these healing injuries, because he was in this Fight Club and maybe something got out of control and somebody went crazy on him and all of a sudden he died.
It could be possible it's a cover-up and this was all staged to look like a hit and run. If you've got a pathologist coming forward and telling you, this does not look like a hit and run to me, I'm not seeing broken arms, I'm not seeing broken legs, no broken ribs, there's something to question
there. There were broken ribs.
Why would the authorities allegedly cover this thing up?
In a small town, every cop has a friend.
Yep.
There are three different versions to every single story in a small town true crime case. There is what the cops think happened, what the press said happened, and then what the locals think happened.
And the fourth thing is the truth.
Coming up, this video where it looks like a giant is living in Laos. Look at this footprint.
It kind of looks carved out.
And it's in granite. You can't put footprints into granite.
What if this fossilized over time, but the species survived in some form?
Last Days, a new podcast exploring the biggest icons in pop culture taken too soon and what led to their untimely deaths.
It seemed like he was on the cusp of this sort of demise. The juxtaposition between that and the onstage persona that caught us all off guard.
Conspiracy theories, shocking details, and untold heartbreak. Hosts Jason and Derek unpack the stories behind each star's demise.
This was an unnecessarily ghastly presentation of gory details. There was a media blowback, accused the corner of basically clout chasing.
Larger than life, bigger in death. Last Days, available wherever you get your podcasts.
So last year, this video on TikTok just went crazy, where it looks like a giant is living in Laos. It's alive.
I don't buy this as fake. I definitely think that that's something up there, but I'm on the fence about whether or not this is a perspective issue.
Like somebody on a rooftop, maybe closer to the foreground.
Well, if you got a perspective issue here, look at this footprint.
It's got 5 toes. It's shaped like a foot. It absolutely can be a giant's foot.
It kind of looks carved out.
Yeah. And it's in granite. You can't put footprints into granite. It doesn't form that way.
Okay, what if this is something that existed thousands and thousands of years ago and it fossilized over time, but the species survived in some form?
Right, but you can actually have stuff like that from thousands and thousands of years ago. There are some really cool examples like Gigantopithecus, which was an ape that was about 10 feet tall that finally went extinct around 200,000 years ago or so. So we just missed him. So there was a time on Earth where there were human beings, there were modern humans about 200,000 years ago, where our ancestors could have actually met a 10-foot tall giant.
But you know what's interesting about this room? You guys immediately dismissed it and said this is some kind of optical illusion.
Why are all these video evidence recordings just so grainy and terrible? Why can't we have like a good quality?
Because they're not professionals
Why
that
do we
are
have a
taking
good
this.
quality?
I mean, it's kind of like
all of our phones are professional cameras.
It's a normal person that doesn't know the correct settings trying to get this video. So absolutely, it can be real.
I absolutely believe. Not only the historical evidence, I mean, we see apparently there have been giant footsteps found all over South Africa, the U.S. They're everywhere. Australia, like there are multiple instances where we see giant footprints around the world, and I think that that's a sign that there have been multiple of these figures found in multiple places.
Is the idea that giants once walked the earth and they lived, and there are a few that have kind of stuck around and hiding?
There are theories that there's a race continuing to live that has gone underground.
But also there's these prehistoric jars in Laos.
10-foot high, and by the way, survived the U.S. bombing of Laos.
Right. Were they for the giants? Like in some way, because they're so
everything's big.
Even Abraham Lincoln talks about a lost race of giants.
Are you making that up?
No, he was talking about the age of Niagara Falls, and he said that there used to be a lost race of giants. So if Abraham Lincoln said it, it's true.
Because he's an authority on evolution.